You don't have to cut up peppers all pretty. You don't have to cut them up real pretty. Just cut them up. I like to use this fancy canning funnel here and fill them up. Oh, what kind of peppers are these?
Spicy bell pepper.
I didn't know they made spicy bell peppers. Or was that an accident by growing them near? They are. This is naturally spicy. Okay, that's something I didn't know about.
So you're not too particular about the shape?
No, because it's going to be blended. It doesn't matter what the shape they're in. They're going to be pulverized as long as they're kind of sort of small sizes. If they fit in the jar, they're going to do just nicely. But you want to have, if you have green peppers like you have here, the green peppers have less sugar. The lactobacillus likes the sugar. That's what it's eating. It's not eating the peppers. It's eating the sugar. If you have a lot of greens, you need to make sure to add in some reds. You want reds and greens mixed together if you're doing greens. What we can also do is what we're doing here is we're going to take some that's already ready to be made. We're going to take some of that juice from it, and that's going to get us a little starter culture, so we don't have to worry too much about how much lactobacillus we have. Now, lactobacillus is a bacteria that exists right now. It's on your skin while you're watching this video, so don't worry about it. It's totally normal. But what's good about it is lactobacillus isn't affected too much by salt. However, the bacteria that will make this stuff rot and go bad doesn't survive in the salt solution. So the peppers do not rot. But the lactobacillus, and what they do is they make lactic acid, which is probably why they call it lactobacillus. I'm not a biologist, I have no idea. But what they do is they'll make the lactobacillus. They also make flavors other than that, but they get pickled in that acid, just like you would pickle in vinegar, because vinegar is also an acid. Okay, for peppers we do a brine solution, and it's by weight. 2% by weight of water. This is a 500-liter bottle, so that's 500 grams. 2.5% of 500 grams is 12.5 grams. So I always pour it into a bowl, and then I've already weighed out 12.5 grams of salt. Don't use iodized salt. Use pickling salt, or in this case we're using kosher salt. Use a salt that's just salt. Just read the label. If it says salt, it's salt. You don't want any kicking edges, because that's going to be all cloudy and yucky. You don't want iodine, because it's going to give a flavor that you don't like. Just salt. And if you do it by weight, you don't have to worry about volumes. That's more precise. But now we take this, we pour it into the pepper jar. It's probably going to take at least a bottle and a half. No, it's going to take more than that. So we have to wait some more, and then we'll get back to you. I think you'll get me transferring the funnel to the other one. Top that off, and then go to the next one. With a larger bowl, you can do one big batch of brine, but we didn't plan it very well. Ooh, there's some hot peppers in there. Okay, since you need the peppers to be out of the air, they need to be submerged for at least the first couple of days. I use these weights. You can find these in Google. Just search for fermenting glass weights, and you can get a box of about 5 or 4. Yeah. And also, to keep the air out of control, you can use airlocks, which are like this. Put the lid on, and you put the airlock on. Take this lid off. I usually use vodka. I buy the cheapest vodka I can buy because it's sterile. But you can also use plain old water. There. As soon as it starts floating, you have enough in there. And as the lactobacillus eats the sugar, it makes carbon dioxide, and it bubbles out of here, and oxygen, air can't get back in. So after about 2 days, there's no oxygen in this air gap. And at that point, the glass is just wasting its time. Now, here's another way of keeping the air out. You can buy these bell lids that have a vent here. It's like a soft rubber. So it'll burp and then close back down again. But to keep the peppers below the surface of the water, they include a spring, and that pushes them down. and it doesn't work as well as I like, but it works. Now, if you don't have anything to hold it down, you can use a cabbage leaf or nothing, and once a day, come over here and get a shake to keep them wet. And after 2 days, it doesn't matter anymore. The lactobacillus doesn't eat the peppers. The lactobacillus eats the sugar. So you need to have ripe peppers in there, so you have sugar to go. Green ones are hard. Here's a failure. This is about what it looks like right now. It's hard to see. This failed about 3 months ago, and I'm keeping it just to see how bad it gets, just as a learning tool. It doesn't smell disgustingly horrible, but there is definitely a very bad note in the smell to it. But since it's so salty, the bad bacteria is growing very slowly. So this is rotting very slowly. But it's a little experiment I'm going to play with. We'll see how that goes. We forgot something that we're doing this time. Oh, you're okay. Since we have so many green, we're going to use some of the starter, or some of the brine from the last batch that we did as a starter, to make sure we have a good bit of lactobacillus in here. Now the risk here, now that we've added more, is as these peppers ferment, bubbles are going to appear on them. So every chance you get, give them a shake and let the bubbles come out. Otherwise the bubbles will displace water and this will overflow. And even if you do that, these need to go onto a saucer or something that will catch any overflow that happens. More than half of mine do end up overflow in the first 2 days. I'm just gonna put one in there, it's already close. But there's plenty of reds in here. Okay, this is a batch that's been fermenting for about 6 weeks, and it smells really good. Now this white stuff floating at the top is called calm yeast. Calm yeast doesn't mean it's gone bad. It's totally safe. It's not going to make the batch bad. Some people say it affects the flavor. Some people don't. I have no idea. This is the first time I've ever had calm yeast in mine. But the easiest way to remove it, or the safest way, well, not the safest, the least messy way to get it out is to use a paper towel. You can just dip in here and just scoop it. You can get most of it out. And apparently this doesn't work as well as it does on some of the channels I've watched. Oh, that smells so good.
So why are we taking it off?
I don't really want that in my hot sauce. But apparently I'm not going to get it all out, so I'm not going to worry about it. But what we're going to do is we're going to need to separate all the liquid and use a strainer. I usually use the kind of strainer your grandmother used. I've never used a fancy one like this before. You hear that noise? That is the glass weight. You put a glass weight in there. This is one way. For the first 2 days, maybe the first 3 days, you want the peppers to be held down, submerged, so that they're not in the air gap, because there's still oxygen in here for the first couple of days. As the lactobacillus makes carbon dioxide, it's going to push it out past the airlock, and after a couple of days, there's really almost no oxygen in there. At that point, these glass weights don't do anything. And we're going to show you some other ways to keep it down. So that's nice and separated. I'm going to put these, I think I'll use a spoon, and I'm going to scoop all these. These are all Fresnos. So it's going to be a nice sauce, but it's going to be kind of one note. And we're going to put these into the blender do. And I do want to add some of the liquid. Again with a spoon, because you want a little bit of liquid to help it move around. And you kind of go by eye on this. If it's not very liquid when I start it up, we'll just stop it and add some more liquid. Better little than too much. Isn't blending well? We need a little more liquid. So we're gonna. That might be enough. All right, now we put it in the sifter. You can put it straight into a squirt bottle or a bottle right now like it is. I always strain it to get out the seeds and the big pieces that didn't get blended. And you have a nice sauce that can be put into a squirt bottle. In fact, that's exactly what we're gonna do with this, is this is gonna go into a squirt bottle. I brought a couple. This is a little bit easier with a traditional strainer, but you just work it through. And it takes a while to get it through, but look at the sauce we're getting out right now. That's what it's gonna look like. And there's gonna be a lot of stuff in here. Chili Chump is a channel I learned how to do sauce on. That's a really good channel. And he says the stuff that's left over in the strainer you can use for seasoning things. You spread it out and let it dry. I suppose you probably put it in a warm oven to dry faster. And we're not gonna get much sauce out of this. These aren't very wet chilies apparently. Okay, this is the sauce we made after it's strained. Not real happy with this, but it'll still taste good. And this is what we got out after we pushed it out. It looks kind of like ground beef in the video, I bet, because it kind of looks like ground beef right here. But I guarantee you that's not ground beef. This you can dry up and use it for seasoning stuff. Experiment, I've never done it. But if you make some sauce and you experiment, leave a comment and let us know what you do with it. That might be something fun to play with. So this will have to be bottled up, and we'll do that next. Okay, and here's our sauce. And I got Emily holding the bottle for me because I need to scrape it because I want to get every drop. This might be a little over half a bottle. Let's find out. It is a little over half a bottle. Let's tap out that. Let's see what it tastes like. Yeah, it's okay. It'll do.